History often turns real men into symbols. Some become heroes polished by legend, others become villains darkened by fear, propaganda, and memory. Few historical figures sit at the center of such sharp contradiction as Vlad III of Wallachia, better known as Vlad the Impaler or Voyvoda. In the Balkans and in much of Eastern Europe, he is remembered as a ruthless but necessary ruler who resisted foreign domination. In Ottoman chronicles and Turkish historical memory, however, he stands as one of the most brutal enemies the Turks ever faced, an embodiment of cruelty, betrayal, and terror. This essay explores why Vlad earned this reputation, how his conflict with the Ottoman Empire shaped regional history, and how myth, politics, and memory transformed a medieval prince into one of history's most feared figures. To understand Vlad the Impaler, one must first understand Wallachia. In the 15th century, Wallachia was a small principality wedged between powerful forces: the Kingdom of Hungary to the north and the rapidly expanding Ottoman Empire to the south. It was a land defined by border politics, shifting loyalties, and survival through compromise. Rulers of Wallachia often paid tribute to the Ottomans while seeking protection or recognition from Christian Europe. This delicate balance rarely lasted long. Vlad III was born around 1431 in the Transylvanian city of Sighișoara. His father, Vlad II Dracul, was a member of the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric order dedicated to defending Christianity against the Ottomans. Yet despite this symbolic opposition, Vlad II was forced by political reality to submit to Ottoman authority and pay tribute. This contradiction, Christian identity versus Ottoman power, would deeply mark Vlad III's life. As a child, Vlad and his younger brother Radu were sent to the Ottoman court as hostages, a common practice meant to ensure the loyalty of vassal rulers. They lived for years under Ottoman supervision, likely at Edirne, witnessing the discipline, organization, and brutality of imperial politics. For Vlad, this experience planted the seeds of deep hatred and resentment. For Radu, it had the opposite effect. He adapted, converted to Islam, and later became an Ottoman ally. This contrast between the brothers would define much of Wallachia's later history. Vlad's rise to power was anything but stable. He gained and lost the Wallachian throne multiple times amid conspiracies, invasions, and betrayals. When he finally secured firm control in 1456, he ruled with an iron hand. His goal was clear: absolute authority at home and independence from the Ottoman Empire abroad. To achieve internal stability, Vlad launched a campaign of terror against the Wallachian nobility, particularly the boyars, whom he viewed as traitors responsible for his father's death. Executions were public, brutal, and symbolic. Among all methods, impalement became his signature. Victims were slowly skewered on wooden stakes and left to die over hours or days, their bodies displayed as warnings. This practice earned him the name Voyvoda, the Impaler Prince. While impalement was not unique to Vlad, similar punishments existed across medieval Europe and the Middle East. His systematic and theatrical use of it was exceptional. He understood fear as a political tool. Order, in his view, could only be maintained through terror. Crime reportedly disappeared from Wallachia during his rule, not because of moral reform, but because punishment was unimaginably severe. Vlad's reputation as the greatest enemy of the Turks stems primarily from his open defiance of the Ottoman Empire, particularly Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople. Initially, Vlad paid tribute like previous rulers, but in the early 1460s, he made a decisive break. He refused to send tribute and began attacking Ottoman positions south of the Danube. What followed was not conventional warfare, but a campaign of psychological terror. Vlad launched night raids, burned villages, poisoned wells, and massacred Ottoman soldiers and civilians alike. Ottoman chroniclers described tens of thousands of Turks killed, many of them impaled and left along major roads. These acts were designed not only to weaken the Ottoman military presence, but also to send a message. Wallachia would not submit quietly. The most infamous episode occurred in 1462, when Sultan Mehmed II personally led an army into Wallachia to crush Vlad. As the Ottoman forces advanced toward the capital, Târgoviște, they encountered a horrifying sight: a vast forest of the impaled. Thousands of bodies, Ottoman soldiers, prisoners, and local Muslims, were displayed on stakes stretching as far as the eye could see. Even hardened Ottoman veterans were reportedly shocked. According to contemporary accounts, Sultan Mehmed II is said to have remarked that a man capable of such acts could not be easily defeated. Whether apocryphal or not, the story reflects the deep psychological impact Vlad's tactics had on the Ottoman army. From a Turkish historical perspective, Vlad the Impaler represents more than a rebellious vassal. He symbolizes treachery, cruelty, and religious hatred. Several factors contribute to this image. First, Vlad violated the norms of vassalage. Hostage-taking and tribute were standard mechanisms of Ottoman diplomacy. By accepting these terms and later breaking them violently, Vlad was seen as a traitor who abused Ottoman trust. Second, the scale and brutality of his violence were extraordinary. Ottoman warfare, while often harsh, operated within certain conventions. Vlad's mass impalements, especially of prisoners, were viewed as barbaric even by the standards of the time. Third, Vlad deliberately targeted Muslims, including civilians, framing his war as both political and religious. His letters to European rulers boast of killing Turks and Muslims in large numbers, presenting himself as a defender of Christianity. These letters circulated widely, reinforcing his image as a bloodthirsty enemy of Islam. Finally, memory and storytelling amplified his crimes. Ottoman chroniclers preserved stories of his cruelty, while Turkish folk memory passed them down as cautionary tales. Over time, Vlad became less a man and more a symbol of absolute enmity. Interestingly, while Vlad is remembered in Turkish history as a monstrous enemy, his image in Western Europe was shaped by a different but equally dark narrative. German pamphlets printed during his lifetime described him as a sadistic tyrant who delighted in torture. These early mass-produced texts spread sensational stories of cannibalism, mass murder, and grotesque cruelty. These pamphlets were not neutral historical accounts. They were political propaganda produced by merchants and rivals who suffered under Vlad's strict rule. Yet they played a crucial role in transforming Vlad into a European horror figure. Centuries later, these stories inspired Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula. Although Stoker's vampire is fictional, he borrowed the name and some historical elements from Vlad III. As a result, Vlad the Impaler became permanently fused in global imagination with blood, death, and supernatural evil. In modern Romania, Vlad the Impaler is often portrayed as a national hero, a strong ruler who defended the land against foreign domination and imposed justice through harsh means. Statues depict him as a stern warrior, not a sadist. School textbooks emphasize his resistance to the Ottomans and his role in strengthening state authority. This contrast highlights an important truth. Historical memory is shaped by perspective. For Romanians, Vlad represents resistance. For Turks, he represents atrocity. Both views are rooted in real events, filtered through cultural experience. Yet even within Romanian scholarship, there is growing acknowledgement that Vlad's methods were extreme. Defending sovereignty does not require glorifying cruelty. The challenge lies in separating legitimate resistance from unnecessary brutality. For the Ottoman Empire, expansion was not merely conquest but order building. The Ottomans saw themselves as bringers of stability, law, and imperial justice. Rebels like Vlad disrupted this vision. His tactics threatened not only military control, but the moral authority of the empire. Moreover, Vlad's actions forced the Ottomans to confront a new kind of warfare, one based on terror rather than territorial gain. While the empire ultimately survived and continued expanding, the psychological shock of Vlad's resistance left a mark on Ottoman military thinking. Vlad's reign did not end in triumph. After years of war, he was eventually overthrown, imprisoned by the Hungarians, and later restored briefly to the throne with Ottoman approval, an irony that underscores the complexity of Balkan politics. In 1476, he was killed in battle or assassinated, and his head was reportedly sent to Constantinople as proof of his death. For the Ottomans, this was justice served. For Wallachia, it marked yet another change of ruler. But for history, Vlad's death did not end his story. In many ways, it only began. Was Vlad the Impaler truly the greatest enemy of the Turks? In terms of scale, The Ottomans faced far larger and more powerful adversaries: European coalitions, Persian empires, and internal rebellions. Yet few enemies matched Vlad's intensity of hatred or his willingness to embrace terror as strategy. What makes Vlad unique is not the size of his army or the length of his reign, but the psychological scar he left behind. His name became synonymous with cruelty. His image crossed borders and centuries. Even today, Kazakli Voyvoda evokes fear, fascination, and debate. From a moral standpoint, history does not absolve Vlad. Resistance don't. Always not excuse mass murder. Political necessity does not justify sadism. At the same time, understanding his actions requires acknowledging the brutal context of the 15th century, a world where power was rarely gentle and mercy was often seen as weakness. Vlad the Impaler stands as a mirror reflecting the darkest aspects of medieval power. To the Turks, he remains one of history's most feared enemies, a man who turned violence into spectacle and hatred into policy. To others, he is a symbol of resistance or a legendary monster. Ultimately, Vlad was neither vampire nor myth. He was a human ruler shaped by fear, ambition, and a world defined by endless war. Remembering him honestly means rejecting both romantic hero worship and sensational demonization. It means recognizing that history's greatest enemies are often born where empires collide and where survival demands choices that haunt memory for centuries. Vlad the Impaler Voyvoda's legacy reminds us of a timeless lesson. When power is built on terror, it may command obedience, but it will never escape judgment.